Hello everyone, and welcome to my guide for Chongyun. Chongyun is loved by some for his cool personality and calming presence, as well as his notable interactions with Xingqiu and Shenhe. He has a decent reputation as being one of the originals of the now highly rated and various national team. While he may have been one of the first ones to go, he performed well in his role and has some others. So for anyone looking to build Chongyun in any way, this is the guide for you. Chongyun's kit might actually be the most straightforward kit in the game. His normal attacks for the most part are simple. The final hit does get a ranged cryo attack from Constellations, but that's the most interesting part. He has the usual Claymore character spin to win for a charge attack too. His elemental skill has him do a small cryo AoE in front of him, and put out a field which makes any melee weapon character, not Hazo, do cryo damage with their normal or charge attack, unless they say in their talent that they can't be overridden. This is the main part of his kit that makes him unique, being the only character who can overwrite someone's element at C0. His burst is a low cooldown, low cost, high damage ability that has a very small AoE. It deals a good amount of cryo damage exactly where the 3 swords hit. Chongyun's first Ascension talent makes it so that melee characters have increased normal attack speed in his field, and his second one drops a cryo AoE when his field expires, which shreds cryo resistance for a while. Just like his talents, Chongyun's constellations are also fairly simple. His first constellation is the aforementioned ranged ending to his attack sequence. His C2 makes it so that skills and bursts cast within the ice field have a reduced cooldown. His C3 and C5 are 3 levels to his burst and skill respectively. His C4 makes him regen a single energy when hitting opponents affected by cryo. Notice it is a single energy, not a particle, so recharge won't really change it. Not that you'll really need to be building recharge on him anyways. His C6 is probably his best constellation, making him deal more damage to enemies with less percent health than him, which is usually pretty easy to keep consistently active. And his C6 makes it so that his burst summons an extra sword at the end. So, with that said, Chongyun has a couple of viable builds and each one is fairly straightforward. The first one I'll go over is the most simple, a support build. The primary purpose of this build is to increase the uptime of his cryo infusion while providing whatever other support you can. This build is one to consider when making a freeze or fridge team where Chongyun is not the on-field enabler. For weapons, the by far best option is the Sacrificial Greatsword. That way you can reasonably keep his cryo field active at all times. The Favonius Claymore is also a good option for team utility to keep the team's bursts up. The last option I'd recommend for a support build is the 5-star weapon, Wolf's Gravestone. It's not exactly as accessible as the others, but it does provide a good damage buff for Chongyun himself, and if you could utilize the passive it'll provide good buffs to the whole team. As far as artifacts go, there isn't a lot of variety for this build. 4 Piece Noblesse could be a good choice as he has a low cooldown burst, so you'll have good uptime on the buff. This is the best option, but you could also run him for some damage, meaning any combination of 2 Piece Noblesse, 2 Piece Blizzard Strayer, or 2 Piece of any of the attack percent sets. As far as the pieces go, it doesn't particularly matter for this build, but trying to get his crit stats and cryo damage up will increase his damage for some extra oomph in the couple of seconds he's on field every rotation. The next build I'll go over is building him as a main DPS. You should absolutely build him as a Cryo DPS if you're doing this, and most likely you'll want to use him in a freeze or fridge team with few exceptions. For weapons, I'd recommend either the Serpent Spine or the Black Cliff for 4 stars, if you have them. If not, I'd recommend crafting the Prototype Archaic. Any 5-star will be a good option, all of them have good stats and at least decent passives for a DPS. The artifact choices are basically the same as the support build, except I would not recommend running him 4 Piece Noblesse. The best set is easily the 4 Piece Blizzard Strayer set because you're basically only going to be dealing cryo damage. For the beasts, you'll want to maximize crit damage since you should be getting a good amount of crit rate from Blizzard Strayer and cryo resonance most likely. If not, then try to get crit rate you're happy with, then go for crit damage. An attack timepiece and a cryo damage sands are the best options. To note though, that is because this Chongyun is in a freeze team most likely, he'll be proccing freeze and shatter constantly. Elemental Mastery wouldn't be a wasted roll on substats if you get it, but I still would not recommend building him specifically for Elemental Mastery. This also holds true if you're running him in a melt team rather than a freeze team. The last build I'll talk about today is niche to say the least, but it's honestly pretty fun and I'd recommend giving it a shot if you think it sounds fun to you as well. It's a physical DPS Chongyun. Yes, this means basically never using your elemental skill. This is a very specifically build basically made just for people who want to have some fun, or have the specific gear, or want to use specific characters, like your favorites on the same team. Namely, this is for those who want to use Song of Broken Pines on Chongyun. Besides the song, there are other DPS weapons I talked about before would be good options, in addition to the Snow Tomb Plate Mark. So part of what makes this team viable is obviously the Superconduct reaction. Now you might be thinking it's going to be hard to keep the Superconduct debuff going without using a skill. To that there are two options. One, have another Cryo character. Cryo resonance is always a good thing. And two, it just so happens that the Superconduct debuff has a 12-second duration. You know what also just so happens to have a 12-second cooldown? Chongyun's Burst. You should have an alright time keeping it up too, since most Electro characters, who you need anyways for Superconduct, act as good batteries, and Chongyun will be on field collecting the particles. That's not where the fun part ends to this build though. You could also make it into a freeze comp. The Shatter Chongyun will proc is also boosted by the Superconduct. Again, still wouldn't recommend building him for Elemental Mastery, but it is a nice bonus, and if you use the Ocean Hued Clam, which you'll have a lot of viable users for on that team, Superconduct will also boost the damage of the bubble that explodes. That means for team slots, I'd recommend Chongyun, a Cryo off-field character, an Electro off-field character, and a Hydra off-field character. There are a lot of options for each, but you'll want to make sure you have at least one shielder or healer, and one as a good off-field DPS to do more damage. As for the artifacts, you want to run them with 2-piece Bloodstain and 2-piece Barrel Fame, or 2-piece of either of those with 2-piece attack percent. The pieces themselves should be fairly straightforward, with attack percent Sands, Physical Goblet, and a crown with whatever crit stat you need more of. Chongyun is a very straightforward character, both in personality and in builds for the most part. But with that, he's extremely consistent and easy to build and use relative to most other characters. That being said, there are still ways to change things up from what most others are doing, and have fun in unique ways. If you found this guide helpful or interesting in any way, please leave a like on the video and subscribe for more. If you have any questions, comments, or recommendations, please leave a comment. I love talking about this game, so I'm likely to reply. I look forward to any feedback, and with that, bye everyone, have a great day.